The Chiefs are now 9-0, and I don't feel like they deserve that record. So let's talk about their season so far, the games they've won, and then maybe what their future in this season will look like, with some historical context as well. As I see you've added, I did click that link, by the way.
Nice.
So week one, they squeak out a win over the Ravens, and that is the play where, or the game where Isaiah Likely had his toe out of bounds on the final play to tie it, to send it to overtime. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee a Ravens win, but being that close to having a chance to win it is unfortunate, and the Ravens lost on that last play. It was a game right up until the end, and the Chiefs squeaked out a win against a really good Ravens team. Then week two, they get a 1-point win over the Bengals after a justified flag on the Bengals defense on the Chiefs' last drive that puts them into field goal range, shades of the playoffs and some matchups with the Bengals there. A very close game, again, decided on the last play with that game-winning field goal. Then week three, we get the 5-point win over the Falcons with the absurd no call on the defensive pass interference on Kyle Pitts when he was getting hugged in the end zone way before the ball got there. That's just a bad call by the refs, or a bad no call by the refs, that gives the Chiefs a win there. Obviously, if the call goes the Falcons' way, there's still no guarantee they win it, but just to illustrate a point, let's say that they would. Then week four, they've got a 7-point win over the Chargers. Derwin James is suspended for a game. I won't hold that against the Chiefs or their win or anything like that. I think that's a genuine victory for them that doesn't have too many caveats. Week five, they've got a 13-point win over the Saints. It's the Saints, so I'm not, again, I'm not saying that they undeservedly won that game, but it's not that much of a game to me. Then I believe this is week seven because they had a week 6 bye, correct?
Let me double check that.
That or they had a week 5 bye.
They did have a week 6 bye week.
Okay. So then week 6 bye. Week 7, they have a 10-point win over the 49ers, albeit handed victory over a good team, but 49ers did not have Debo or Christian McCaffrey, and Ayuk tore his ACL that game. He had 2 catches that game, and they're more than likely game planned to get Ayuk pretty heavily involved without Debo and CMC. Yeah. Then they have a 7-point win over the Raiders. Again, it's the Raiders. Then they have an overtime win versus the Bucs, where the Chiefs won the overtime toss and scored first, not giving the Buccaneers a chance to score in overtime. Again, dumb rule that needs to be changed, and that has been for the playoffs, but that rule still has not been updated for the regular season. And then we get into this past weekend, where they blocked a field goal, a 36-yard field, 33, 36, a sub 40-yard field goal that they blocked last second to beat the Broncos.
Yeah.
Now,
time expiring kick would have won it, would have been a walk-off, went ahead and blocked it, and there was like 4 guys that could have blocked it. It was whole special teams collapse for the Broncos in that situation.
I'm not saying that they deserve to lose all of these games or most of these games. They've won them for a reason. I'm just saying, for an undefeated team, this is a whole lot of not convincing victories that we've seen them have. And I'm not going to say it scares me, because I feel like every week I'm expecting them to lose and they squeak it out. So I'm fully expecting that to happen for the rest of the season for them. But it does kind of make me wonder, what is their future this season? Are we going to see a Steelers 11-0 to 11-6 level collapse, or 11-5? What, like when they had their undefeated start?
They were 11-0 and they ended 12-4 because it was still the 16-game season.
Yeah, and then lost in the wild card round, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So are we going to see something like that, or are we going to see them continue this out? And you've got their upcoming schedule here, and then your little topic here, and I will let you take the reins from here because I have said my piece.
Yeah. So these are close games. The Chiefs have been playing very close football all year, and you make the point that like they shouldn't be undefeated because of all of these really like single play determining factors that you could tack on to each of these play. Like all of these games, you can pin a single play and be like, that was a difference maker. And you go ahead and you try to project out the rest of the year because, like you said, the Steelers, they were not winning convincingly when they were 11-0. And it was kind of like a win or the break's going to fall off of this team. And I feel that despite we'll say like shaky ground that this 9-0 season has been built on after all the things we went through. This doesn't feel at all like the Steelers did in 2020. The Steelers in 2020 were really uncohesive, whereas the Chiefs, they've been cohesive, just not in the way that you would expect. It hasn't been cohesive from Mahomes' standpoint. They've been running the ball, they have been controlling clock, they have been riding on the defense and winning these close games because the offense hasn't been the thing that's going to like plow ahead full steam. And so you go ahead and you look at the rest of the schedule here. We got the Bills that are coming up, and that one's scary because if you have Mahomes not playing his best football, how do you expect to play Josh Allen, who, yeah, he's had a little bit of a fall off the past couple of weeks, but he's still playing that top tier, like he's making sure he controls possession. He's not giving the ball away like he has in the past. But then after that, like, okay, is it going to fall off on the Bills? Well, if it doesn't, if we have another like OT, Mahomes gets the ball first, Josh Allen, overtime, whole situation there, well, then they're going to come off of that and they're going to see the Panthers. Yeah.
Bryce Young is going to end the Chiefs' undefeated season. He's going to do it. I know he is.
He's going to be the headhunter we all need. I don't see that happening. If they beat the Bills, if they're strong enough to beat the Bills, I don't see them falling to the Panthers. So now we have them.
But they almost fell to the fucking Broncos.
Almost.
See, yeah, no, that's the thing though, is the point that can be made with all of these games that are coming up. It's like, no, there's no reason that they should lose these. And it's like, yeah, but there's no reason they should have been like depending on a blocked field goal to beat the Broncos. There's just no reason for that. There's no reason that they should only be beating the Raiders by 7 points.
Yeah.
Like,
they beat the Saints by 13 though.
oh boy. Yeah. And then I did want to comment on what you said about the lack of parallels between the Steelers and Chiefs, the Steelers 2020 season. Mm-hmm. I would actually argue that it's very similar, because the Steelers also heavily relied on their defense to take them to that 11-0 start, which is something that the Chiefs have been doing as well, as their offense, albeit has scored points, but it's not looked good. Even when they are running the ball and running it effectively, they put up 16 points and beat the Broncos. So Broncos defense is good. I'll give them that. But I feel like a very large part of this season is the same as the Steelers, where it's very strong defense and very disciplined special teams, and then the offense does whatever and they still win. And that's exactly how I feel like the Steelers were playing in 2020 when they got out to that 11-0 start and then fell apart. But I do think you're right that this does feel different. I just can't pinpoint where it feels
go
different.
Ahead and like lose the next I don't feel that this is going to be a team that's going to just fall apart, because they've yet to show, like, they keep adding pieces. They've been growing better despite not winning by any larger margins. They've been growing better as the season went on. Like, Mahomes has gotten better. Kelsey fucking finally found the love for football once again and started going off. So, when you got the Bills being the toughest opponent for the rest of the stretch, we got the Bills Texans, I could truly see as like they're going to knock them off. The rest, you got the Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Broncos, Browns, Steelers. Like, good mix of division games in there, so those are always tighter. But the non-division games are, to me, feel like they're leaning towards the Chiefs' strengths, not the teams they're playing strengths. And when you want to go ahead and go to that link, go look at this is the full list of the last undefeated team. For every season, this is the team that was undefeated the longest, and the end result for them. And it takes all the way until 2006, the Indianapolis Colts, to be the team that was the longest undefeated to also win the Super Bowl. So this is what the whole season's been really building up for the Chiefs. They are fighting for that three-peat hardcore. They're making trades. They're bringing back guys that, they let walk because they need players. With all the injuries they've sustained. When we look through this whole list, like, okay, you have so many years between the last time it won a Super Bowl, and it's like this, Mahomes, the Chiefs, this little dynasty run they've had, they've certainly broken these records of like, this is the longest since this happened, like the Kurt Warner thing with Mahomes. And it's hard to feel that they're not trending that way because the Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Chiefs have won for the past year. They're in the AFC Championship every freaking like 5 years straight, more than that, 7. It's been a ridiculous, passing of the torch from the Brady era into, okay, the AFC is now owned by Mahomes and the Chiefs. And it doesn't feel like that 11-0 Steelers. And I'd be shocked to find like the next team that really could compete with this team out of the last undefeated run. Because, I mean, you look since 2020, I feel like there hasn't really been strong, oh, this is the last undefeated team,
Well, I think Eagles in 2022 coming off the season that was the season they went to the Super Bowl. So that was a very strong team that ended up making Super Bowl and losing. I feel like the 49ers in a couple of their undefeated years definitely looked very strong. But yeah, I think it's also tough to compare final undefeated teams because the last undefeated team oftentimes is just the one with the luckiest schedule, not necessarily the best team. And I think that's what you see with all these, like you said, since 2006, nobody has won the Super Bowl after being the last undefeated team. Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks much more towards the last undefeated team being the luckiest team rather than the best team. There's only been one last undefeated team that missed playoffs, and that was the 2016 Vikings, but they were only 5-0 when they were the last undefeated.
Yeah.
So I don't
take much stock in one that ended prior to the midseason mark.
Yeah. A lot of these teams ended up making the Super Bowl and losing it. I'll probably have a small portion of this list up on the screen ahead and on top
since
of us.
2000.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought I found that link and I thought it was a good kind of have a conversation around this because, we can liken we'll say, as I said, unsteadiness of the wins to that Steelers team, but it's like this is way better than that Steelers team in my mind, at least. How I felt watching that Steelers team, waiting week after week, like why are they winning these games? They blow. Versus this team, where there was like a good 4-week stretch where it was like, how are they winning these games? They suck really bad, but they've kind of put it together, and now they look more like okay, they can win a game. Like the Broncos, really strong defense, and it's not like many teams beat up on the Broncos defense. So
yeah, I feel like we are going to see an end to the season at some point before the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. I think that they have benefited from a weaker schedule. I don't have the exact numbers to say, oh, their strength of schedule is ranked X in the league and that's whatever. But I do think that they are playing one of the easier schedules, which has led to this, as well as getting a lot of really lucky calls and then really lucky situations. And I think the wheels will fall off at some point for them. Not necessarily to the point of the Steelers where it was like they went 1-4 in their last 5 and then lost their first playoff game. So really 1-5 in their last 6. Mm-hmm. But I think we will see them go up against a strong team in the playoffs and just not be able to do it unless they get a lot of lucky calls. And at that point, I will be infuriated with the officiating of that game, and I will have another rant. At this point, though, I do feel like I can have a good discussion about what's going on with them because you feel like you've seen something out of them that's led to these victories. I don't. I really don't. I'm really failing to see what their strength is outside of they are able to play to just above the level of their competitors in every single game, whether their competitor is good or bad. And I don't feel strongly about that. If that's something that you feel is a path to success for the future, then that's probably where our difference lies. But I just don't see that as something that's sustainable for the playoffs when the stakes are much higher.
For right now, like the state that I'm in right now, especially when we get to later in the season, the playoffs, because at this point they're a lock for the playoffs, whether it be wild card, they're gonna make it. It's not so much like here's what I know they've done this season, and here's also I looked it up. They had the 10th easiest schedule, so they if you want to go opposite rank that, It's 22nd in terms of difficulty. And, a good part of that would come from the division and how the division performed last season. So there's that.
Yeah. That does fit my headcanon of them. Plus, they faced Bengals early on, which the Bengals early on are always a little worse than they actually are.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Continuing with that question you kind of posed to me, when it gets to the playoffs specifically, I'm thinking about all the injuries that they suffered or this season. So like Rashee Rice isn't going to be back, but there's a chance Hollywood Brown will be, because it was said that he was going to miss the regular season. They kind of didn't even know it was going to be that bad after a couple of weeks. They were like, okay, he's sidelined for the rest of the regular season, and they want him back for playoffs. So you're going to have Hollywood Brown, and you're going to have D-Hop, and then you go ahead and you add in Isaiah Pacheco, who got hurt for a good majority of this season. He's kind of trending to be healthy soon. Yeah.
He just got activated off IR today.
Yes. So I'm more so projecting as like, okay, here's what they've been lacking and here's what they're getting back. Right when the time that the Chiefs kind of do their thing in November, December, January, where they put things together and they just go on a frenzy, they're getting the pieces they need to do that back at a great time to try to keep this going. And, they can lose to the Bills and I won't be shocked. And they can lose to the Raiders, and they could lose any number of these games. But I don't think it would be like a cascading fall. It's going to be, okay, we dropped one and we're going to go and win next week and we're going to win the week after that, because it's not going to be something that they become a losing football team. They're going to be the winning team they are with some losses.
Definitely let us know your thoughts on the Chiefs season so far and what you think they will do the rest of the year, how far you think they'll make it. I think that as long as they have Mahomes and Steve Spagnuolo, they will be a threat in the playoffs and in any game. So I think they can make the Super Bowl. I'm just less confident in them. So let me know if I'm crazy and I'm way off base for saying that they aren't a convincing football team and that you disagree with me.
Yeah, I can't believe you just left out Andy Reid's Mr. Nuggies himself name off of that little two-person list he had there.
He's assumed.
He's just caught a stray.
he's assumed, okay?